Don't believe the hype of the negative media. Yes, sir.
HYPE. Don't believe it. Hello and welcome to the Don't Believe the Hype podcast. A very wise person once said, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." And that is the intention of this podcast. Our goal is to empower you to change your mind, and in doing so, you can change your life. To do so, you must be willing to transform your life from the inside out, and that is the reason you should be tuned in to this podcast. So if you're ready to be educated, motivated, and inspired to live the life of your dreams, then sit back, relax, and take notes, because you are about to be energized with some high-octane insights and wisdom designed specifically for you. So don't believe the hype of the mainstream media. There has never been a better time to be alive than right now, and you have everything you need inside of you to create an extraordinary life. So now it's up to you to change the way you look at things, so the things you look at will change. Because when you do that, you will gain complete control over your life, and nothing will be impossible for you. So let's get started with the Don't Believe the Hype podcast with your host, Coach Michael Taylor.
Hello and welcome to the Don't Believe the Hype podcast, where the intention is to empower you to transform your life from the inside out. The key to your transformation lies in your willingness to change your mind, because by changing your mind, you can change your life. So remember what the good book says: be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Yeah. Therefore, if you change your mind, you can change your life. So are you ready? Let's go. Today, we're going to have a conversation about personal transformation. And I define transformation as the process through which a person transforms from who they thought they were to who they were born to be. Truth be told, most people are not willing to be transformed. But since you're tuned into this podcast, I believe you're ready. And joining me today is someone who is the absolute perfect person to have this conversation with. Her name is Lisa Kalmin, and she is the founder of WorldWorks Trainings and the author of The Problem is How You See the Problem. And she has been facilitating transformational programs for more than 3 decades. And she is one of the foremost leading experts in human potential. So without further ado, let's welcome Lisa to the show. Lisa, how are you?
I'm good, Michael. Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. We've known each other for over 30 years.
Yes, it's been a long time, and I am super excited to have you on the show. And before we jump into your work and your book, I want to start off with a few icebreaker questions just to get the conversation started. So first of all, tell us where you're from and a little bit about growing up. What was that like for you?
Well, I actually grew up in Houston, which is where you are and where we met. Grew up in Houston and loved living there. I thought it was a great community to grow up in. I now live in Southern California. I live in Orange County, California, and went to school at University of Texas, came out, was in the business world for 9 or 10 years and loved that. Thought it was amazing. I have an MBA. And I finally, somebody told me about these transformational trainings, these workshops. And when I participated in them, I actually thought I was going to another business seminar, something that would just enhance my business skills, and quickly found out it was an opportunity to transform my entire life. And my participation in those trainings has been a top 3 experience in my life, along with getting married and having children. So, year after that, I embarked in this work, transformational training and coaching. I've been doing that for now 33 years.
Wow. Now, I'd like you to name just a couple of people who has shaped you in becoming who you are? So just a couple of people who's really impacted your life. Who would they be?
Wow, that is a great question. I think I had a sixth grade teacher, Mrs. Godachek, who I transferred into that school, and she just loved me. She loved me. And my parents loved me, and I felt very loved by them, but I just felt like I was important and valuable with her. And I think that shaped me. I think I came out of my shell a little bit. And then I had a youth group leader who happened to be my aunt, who also saw in me my leadership potential. And through that organization, through high school and college, really lived into my leadership. And then I think, having someone see me in that LifeSpring arena, which is how we met, and see that I could actually lead people and transform people's lives in that way. And I think that started with Lynn Pollard, who was my second level trainer. So I say those
Nice.
people. In many sense, and many, many people who since that time have seen what's possible for me and challenged me to be that human being.
Yeah, love it. Now, we're going to do some sentence completions.
Okay.
So, complete this sentence. I really love to
be with my kids.
Oh, nice. My superpower is
standing for people and seeing what they can't see.
I am proud of
my life and the number of people I've touched and impacted.
Life is
amazing and scary sometimes.
One thing I would like to change about the world is
having people take time to listen to each other and hear each other's points of view, so we could come together.
Nice. And last but not least, the future is
incredible, open book, blank space, whatever we create it to be.
Fantastic. So I want to share my story about how I met Lisa, because this is leading specifically up to what we're going to talk about today.
Awesome.
Back in the early 90s, my life was in total chaos. I'd gone through a divorce, bankruptcy, a foreclosure, a deep, deep state of depression. And I was trying to figure out what the heck had happened, because at the age of 23, I was living the American dream. I had everything, but then I lost everything. And during that dark period of my life, I was sitting in my office at work, and I was looking at a USA Today newspaper. And I opened up the center section, and there's this article or this segment that says things to do for the summer or something like that.
Yeah.
At the top, there was this huge cruise ship. And my first thought was, wow, maybe I'll take a cruise, to help me deal with the stuff that I was going through.
Yeah.
But at the very bottom of this article was a little 3-sentence something that said, are you ready to take on your life, or something like that? And there was a phone number. I had no idea what it was, but something pulled me to that number.
Wow.
And so the next day I called the cruise agency to see about a cruise, but I called this number. So answer machine picks up, I leave my name and number. A couple of days later, or maybe a day later, someone calls me on the phone, and it's this high energy, energetic person. She says, hi, my name is Lisa. I'd love to talk to you about blah, 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 blah. So we played phone tag by answering machine. So finally I got her on the phone, and she tells me about this event. She's inviting me to this event. I had no idea what it was about.
Yeah.
I said, okay, I think I'll go to this thing. I don't know what it is, but there's something in her that tells me I should go. So I go to this event, and I'm sitting there and I'm kind of listening to what she was saying. And what moved me, though, were some people who had actually taken this program she was talking about. And as I listened to them share their story about what they got out of this thing, whatever it was, I was like, I want some of that.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was, but it was listening to their sharing that I got up, I signed up. So I signed up for this training. Once again, not really knowing what it was, but based on Lisa's enthusiasm and what these people said, I knew that I needed to do the training. But here's the interesting thing. it turns out when I signed up for the training, the date of the training was the same date that I had set for this cruise. I had also signed up for the cruise. And so I'm sitting there at the table signing up and everything, and I asked for the dates, and they told me it was, I said, well, I'll go ahead and pay for it, but I can't do it this time. I'll do it next time. And Lisa steps up and she said something that just kind of, it confused me at first, but it shook me to my core. And she said, Michael, who would you need to be so that this works out and you can be in this training? Because whether you realize it or not, your training has already started. Initially, I was a little upset because it sounded more like a sales pitch. I said, look, lady, I've paid my money. I'm going to do the training, but I just can't do it this time. She says, Michael, just trust me. She says, I just want you to think about it. Who would you need to be? And I said, okay, I'll call, because I didn't think I could change my date with the cruise line and I wasn't going to lose my cruise.
Right.
So that night I go home and I couldn't get it out of my head what she said. Who would I need to be? And I initially didn't really understand the question. But as I thought about it, something in me awakened.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I think I really need to be in that training. And so I called the cruise line. I was able to, move things around. I did the training and it literally changed my life. As a result of this training, I gained the courage, the insights, the awareness to walk away from my very comfortable job, not knowing what the heck was going to happen afterwards. I did have some plans, I didn't just walk blind, but I had some plans that I was going to start my own company.
Mm.
And so that training, again, it awakens something in me that I didn't know was there. And so I mentioned at the beginning that the process of transformation is the process through which we wake up from who we thought we were to who we were born to be. Well, I discovered who I was born to be as a direct result of participating in this particular training.
Yeah.
And so without question, Lisa, I just want to say, I love you.
Yeah.
Thank you for seeing me that way and not selling me out. And being a stand for me. So thank you so much for that. With that being said, I now want you to share what WorldWorks trainings are all about. Tell us about your company.
Yeah, WorldWorks trainings are were birthed out of these trainings that you and I did. And for a while we were doing those exact same 3 courses. Now, there's 3 levels of the main courses that Michael's talking about. And I don't do those through WorldWorks anymore, but I work with companies that do. So I am one of the key trainers. I do the 2nd level training and then the 3rd level training I train. And WorldWorks is really an opportunity to access different parts of your transformation. So I have some courses that are about money mindset, like shifting entirely the way you look at money to allow the flow and the energy of money coming in. I also do a impactful in art of influential speaking. So how to actually touch and empower your audience and go beyond, whether it's virtual through something like Zoom or it's live when we get back to that good stuff. And also personal coaching. So, but I still train those main core trainings. I just do it for different companies now. And up until that time we shifted this, one thing I'm very proud of is through WorldWorks, we raised approximately $2.5 million for charitable organizations in Southern California through our leadership and through our coaching process. So pretty proud of that.
Nice. Now, Lisa, how would you define transformation? How would you define that?
If you look at sort of what it means, if you take the words trans and form, it's really going beyond the form. And so one of the key sort of pillars of transformation is looking at what's the form you see life in, what's the paradigm you're looking through, what's the world view you have, because our view, the way we see the world, is what determines, our belief system, I call it, not spiritual beliefs, but our assumptions and worldview determines the set of available possibilities that we can even see. So the way we see the world is the way the world appears. You were saying that earlier. And so transformation is getting outside of that and beyond that. And what happens is, one, people open up incredible possibilities. They see things they couldn't see before. So what happened in that question for you, when I said, who would you get to be? All that happened was you got beyond the way you saw it and started to think about it in a completely new way. And from that, new ways of being, new actions, and a new results showed up. And so that happens throughout the process of transformation. So people get outside their box would be another way to say that. And can access, as you were saying, what you call the person they were meant to be. I call it being your authentic self, like the you are absolutely born to be.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, for the audience who may be unaware of this stuff called transformation, can you give us some insights about how the human potential movement began? My understanding is it started like in the 70s or something. What's your take on where did that start?
Yeah, so my understanding, doing some research around this, is the human potential movement started in the 70s, and there was a man who has passed away named Alexander Everett. And he was an educator from England. He came to the United States, and he started to work with people through seminars and workshops through that we aren't, the bottom line of is we aren't these fixed ways of being. Like, we're not just born and that's it, and that's all there is available to us. And so through the study of ontology, and ontology is the study of being, the study of human being, we're human being, we're not human doing, and through some other sort of a Gestalt kind of work, he and other people designed these workshops where people could kind of access their, I think they used to call it our diamond in the rough, the diamond inside of us, what now you and I would say who you were meant to be, your authentic self, sort of the freed up, alive, connected version of ourselves, And so that went through stages there were different transformational companies, human potential, and then transformational companies that have since done the work. And now this work it's still being done in many places throughout the world in a very high quality, integrous way. Yeah. So that's kind of how it started and how it's developed as we've developed as humanity, but there are some core possibilities. Whoa, sorry about that. You may want to, let me just pick up from, so since that time, there are still many organizations throughout the world doing this sort of core level transformational work in a really powerful way.
Yeah. Now, there are a lot of misconceptions, I believe, about this type of work.
Yes.
Some people say that they're cults, some negativity out there. So I want you to sort of dispel this idea that these types of trainings are in any way, because, when I think about cults, I think of things like Scientology and, things like that. So it's kind of clear up that misconception, if you would.
Yeah. If you take the word cult, it's just short for culture. So we're all, in a culture. But what people think of as sort of dangerous kinds of cults are the kind of organizations or communities where people follow a certain leader, have very little choice, don't have personal freedoms. They're told what to do. So that's what I think of when I think of like, ooh, it's a cult. And what's great about the transformational work and these trainings that you're talking about is there's no one leader. Like every time there's a seminar or workshop, it's a different person, it's a different facilitator that's trained to deliver. And the key distinction, one of the very key distinctions of transformational work is personal responsibility, and that we all have choice, that we have choices, that human being is this incredibly magical being that has choices. And so in a cult where you're told what to do, in these trainings, you're asked, what is your vision? What are you up to? What do you want to do? What is your purpose? And that you have whole ownership in the choices you make, the actions you take, the way you look at the world. So it's sort of the anti-cult for me because, I always laugh about how would you deprogram someone who did these trainings? You'd say, okay, you don't have choice, you're not responsible, you're not, your whole self, you're not your, own, you don't have a vote. That would be the anti-transformational training way versus it's completely about choice and possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I think anything that people look at, Michael, from outside looking in, that they don't know and understand, it's easy to make judgments about it and to think something isn't kosher, whereas from the inside out, it's completely different.
Now, another thing I think people have problems with when it comes to transformational work is cost. And one of the things I learned was when I signed up for LifeSpring the first time, I really didn't have the money.
Yeah.
But there was a part of me that said, you need to be in this training. And so I was able to move through that consideration because there was a part of me that knew that there was something in here I needed to get.
Absolutely.
So speak to this idea that, number one, the trainings are invaluable. For example, I would literally pay millions of dollars for what I learned in that training the first time if I were a multimillionaire. It was worth millions of dollars to me because it allowed me to connect to my authentic self, which is invaluable.
Absolutely.
So speak to the people who may have this consideration, don't want to pay for this training.
Yeah. What's interesting in the last few years, I've sort of looked through the marketplace at seminars, workshops, coaching, and these trainings have always been compared to those on the low end. If you look at coaching prices per hour, et cetera. So for example, the first level training is now like 35 hours and what it is per hour compared to other things is very low. So that's just on the dollar basis. Why the training is invaluable to people and why when people want to be there and they have a purpose or they have something they want to break free or break through, they'll figure it out. Is very much like you would figure out how to make sure if your transmission broke, you fixed your car. If you're in a place where you need your car, or if your children needed something medically, you'd figure it out. So it's all about what matters enough to me that I would figure myself out. Okay. And when you say you'd spend millions of dollars, same for me, it's priceless given who I get to be today. And one of the reasons that's true is because the trainings are experiential. And what I want to say about that is it's not just more information for your mind and your brain, that literally what you learn in the trainings is cellular. It's a cellular shift in who you are. So just as you might, not have ridden a bike in 10 years, you could get on a bike and ride a bike because in your cells, in your being, in your bones is how to ride a bike. And so whatever you learn in the training lives into your future. You did the training 32 years ago, 33 years ago, something like that. You're still living what you learned and utilizing it to make a difference in your life for yourself, your family, and your clients. And so when people say it's priceless, it's because it's not this peak experience that ends after a month or two.
Yeah. And so there's a huge distinction to be made between motivation and transformation.
Yes.
So you go to a motivational seminar, you get pumped up for an hour or two, you might carry it for a day, but then it's gone.
Exactly.
Transformation, as you mentioned, gets in your bones. And it's amazing because, as you mentioned, it's been 30 something years since I've done the training.
Right.
But every day I'm still living that training.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything that I've accomplished is the result of the awareness that I gained by participating in these trainings.
Yeah, I love hearing that. It just makes my heart fill up like so much.
And
Yeah.
if I had to sum it up in one word for me, what I got out of the training, it would be commitment.
Yeah.
I cannot put into words how deeply ingrained that lesson is in me about whatever I'm committed to, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
If it's to be, it's up to me. And that one word, that essence that I got from that training is what allowed me to rebuild my life. It allowed me to, become an author of 9 books with only an 11th grade education. It's allowed me to be, on national television because I learned that if I'm committed to something,
Yes.
no one can keep me from accomplishing it except myself.
Yeah, absolutely true.
I
Absolutely.
really, really, excuse me, got that. Now, I'm a firm believer in human evolution.
Hmm.
And are you familiar with Barbara Marx Hubbard?
Yes, of course. Yes.
Okay. Now, Barbara Marx Hubbard theorizes that human beings are still evolving.
Hmm.
And she used the term we're evolving to Homo universalis. And
Hmm.
I love that term.
Yeah.
I have a sense that humanity is waking up.
Hmm.
I have a sense that we are evolving into just that Homo universalis.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I believe that. I actually think the last few years have been sort of us going through the fire of something so that we can begin to emerge into a more egalitarian, uh, sort of united, harmonious energy. And if you have followed any astrology over the last month, that it's following that as well. If you're an astrology person, you know what I'm talking about out there. So I think we are continuing to evolve. Clearly, if we're evolving technologically, which we are, we're evolving physically, which we are. Uh, However many years ago it was, 100 years ago, a man or a woman could not run a 4-minute mile. If we're evolving psychologically, we're also evolving spiritually. And so I think that's exactly as humanity evolves, it evolves on all planes, and we're headed into that. And I think, like I said, I think the last few years, I think this last month even has been sort of a wake up call into we're being asked what's wanted and needed for us to live together as a culture between our climate, our political uh, situation, the world, coronavirus is a wake up call to this. All of it's kind of pointing us in, it's time to evolve.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So again, I like to think of myself as an irrepressible optimist with a passion for the impossible.
I love it. I love it.
And I in one of my books I wrote the theory, which I'm sure you've heard, what they call the breakdown breakthrough.
Sure.
So currently, I believe humanity is in major breakdown.
Mhm.
Breakdown is always preparation for breakthrough. I
Absolutely.
really believe it. And I think as a species, as a human species, we are moving towards a breakthrough, which again just lights me up. I'm
Yeah.
just fired up about it. That's why
Yeah.
my friends gave me a nickname. They
Hmm.
called me Michael Happy Ass Taylor.
I love that. That's
They
awesome.
say, Michael,
Great.
you and your happy ass, you always happy. Oh yeah, I'm happy. So optimistic.
Good.
So Lisa, you wrote a book.
I did.
The problem is how you
Not as many as you. Not as many as you.
the problem is how you see the problem. Now, I absolutely love your book. So as I'm reading your book, I'm literally seeing you in my mind's eye. And I'm hearing your voice. And I'm
I've
like,
heard
oh
you.
my gosh, this is the lessons that Lisa taught me. And I want to share some of those lessons. So
Yeah.
I want to jump into your book.
Great.
Um, I want you to share some of that wisdom with us. So I want to start off with, first of all, your wake up call. So share a little bit about your wake up call.
Uh, what I was right about in the book. Well, not the trainings, but before that, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, when I was
yeah,
13 or 14. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, when I was 13 or 14 years old, this is, I believe it was 1972. I would be 14. The Summer Olympics happened in Munich, and many Israeli athletes were murdered. It was a terrorist attack. The Israeli athletes were murdered. And I remember as a young teen, safe, secure in my little house in Houston, Texas, really shook by that. Like, why did that happen? What would the possible reason that people would kill each other over anything, religion, politics, anything? It really woke me up to, wait a minute, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a way not to have people hurt each other when they don't see eye to eye, etc. So, or because of their religion, or because of anything, their race, their color, anything. So that really woke me up. And I think from that time, I was involved in youth organizations. I was looking for a way to make a difference. And, I'm really thankful that, God sort of pointed me here to where I ended up today. So that was really kind of my original, when I was little, my like, yep, that's when something moved for me.
Yeah. And the reason I bring that up is I believe that there's those tipping points, if you will, are those experiences that shift our awareness to something bigger than ourselves. And
Yes.
for some people, it's traumatic experiences. For me, for example, my divorce was that wake up call that I really needed to transform my life. And I know there's some people who may be watching this and they may be dealing with, some situation where it's really uncomfortable. They don't know what's next. It could be just a wake up call.
Yeah.
Because my belief system says that the universe is actually perfect. And we just have to awaken ourselves to the perfection that it is.
Yes.
And
right.
so wake up calls are simply the universe's way of saying, I need to get your attention because you have a bigger game to play.
Yeah, no, agree. And I don't think the universe ever gives us any more than we can handle. I
Yeah.
think it always, and the universe is in perfect order. That's the way I say what you were saying. Yeah.
I absolutely agree. So I want to begin with, because one of the most powerful things I learned in LifeSpring in that training was the metaphor of the drift.
Yes. Yeah.
That share that metaphor, if you will, to say how we as human beings get trapped in these cultural ideas. So just talk a little bit about the drift and how that impacts us.
Yeah, so we use an analogy called the drift, and it stands really for the human conspiracy, what I call the human conspiracy, which is the collective consciousness of the planet and where it is, the collective consciousness of the planet where it is. So we use this analogy of a river. Now it's a very wide river, so wide you can't get to the sides, but it's fairly shallow. So and we're born into it. You cannot escape it. You're born into it. We're all born into it. And so as you're born into this human consciousness, this human conspiracy, you have some choices. As individuals, we each of us have choices. One choice is that we kind of go with the flow. So for many people, they go with the flow of life. It's fine. They're surviving fine. Their life is good, or not so good, either way, but they're kind of getting what they get, doing what they're doing. One other choice they have is to fight the drift, to push back against it, which if you think about reaction or rebels, they don't get very far. If there's a current, they're kind of fighting the current. They're not getting very far and they might get tired. So the only way that when we use this analogy to make a difference for yourself and others is to take a stand, to literally like imagine yourself standing up in this wide river. And what happens is the water shifts. You shift the drift, we call it. So things start to shift around you. And as you're standing up, you have, as a leader, you have a visionary perspective. You can see new possibilities. So I talk about in probably the book as well as in the trainings, that we all have our personal drift. Like we have our own history, our own personal history. You were in the drift of having divorced and etc. And you began to take a stand in your own personal drift. And then we have a family drift, and we have a cultural drift, and we have maybe a community drift or work drift or United States drift. So as you begin to stand in your own personal drift, to transcend your own history, your own limiting beliefs, begin to live your own vision and impact the lives of the people around you, you begin to, as a leader, and I think we're all leaders, doesn't matter if you're in front of the room or not. As a leader, you begin to make a difference. So it's knowing that you can't escape it. We're always in it. It's, do I go with it or take a stand in the midst of it to make a difference for myself and other people?
Yeah, yeah. And so I'm reminded of my life when I first did the trainings.
Yeah.
I was trapped in that societal drift that says I'm supposed to have the house, the wife, the 2.5 kids, and all of that.
Right.
And what I realized before I did the training or during the training was I was so stuck in that drift that I didn't have a sense of identity of
Mhm.
who I was as a person.
Yeah.
I was just going with the flow, this going with the flow. And
Yeah.
so taking that stand and doing the training and saying, I'm taking a stand for me,
Mm-hmm.
who I am. And it can be really uncomfortable
Yes.
taking a stand in the drift, because a couple of things I had to deal with. Number one, as a man who happens to be Black,
Yep.
there was a lot of pushback when I started doing these trainings and using some of the lingo.
Mhm.
My immediate friends who happen to be Black also, me talking about taking a stand and being
Mm.
responsible for your life and not feeling like a victim.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got some pushback,
Yeah.
from my friends.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of transformation. When you transform yourself from the inside out, you're able to take those types of stands. You're willing to question
Mhm.
everything,
Mhm.
everything. So, again, I am so grateful for that awareness that I had this amazing gift called choice.
Yes.
I got to choose. And so I chose to become the grandest version of myself through
Yes.
these trainings, through these types of trainings. So I want to jump over now because the drift kind of symbolizes our worldviews and how we have to sometimes change those things. But something that I think is so powerful is this human need to be right.
Yeah. Yes. For sure. Yeah.
We have this insatiable need that our way is the right way, the only way. So kind of touch bases on how being right can sabotage you.
Yeah. If you think about it, we all love to be right. We love it. I want you to think about it. Like, have you ever been in an argument with someone? And those of you out there watching this, like you're going, you're right. You're right. You're right. And all of a sudden, there's this tiny little voice in the back of your head that says, you're wrong. But you keep going anyway. You just keep going because you don't want to let it go. I think we've all been there. So being right validates our our beliefs and our thinking. So if I'm right about the way I see it, then the way I see it or the way I think about it is okay, basically. I'm okay. If I am, the problem with right is that when we're being right, somebody else has to be wrong. So when we're being right, either the situation or someone else has to be wrong. Okay. And none of us like the feeling of being wrong. So what happens is when we're right, we validate the way we have it, we feel safe, we're in our comfort zone. If I'm not right, then it throws me into one of two things. Either I feel wrong, which I don't want to feel, but there's another option here. which I call surrender. And I don't mean surrender like give up, play dead. I mean surrender like let go of the resistance, let go of the need to be right. And surrendering has us as human beings feel open or vulnerable. And vulnerable isn't bad. It's just the experience of vulnerable is exposed. And when we're exposed, yes, we can be hurt or we can feel rejection or judgment, something like that. So the courage piece for this, where courage comes in, is the courage. And courage is not the absence of fear. If you're not afraid, you're probably dead. It's part of life. Courage is acting even though you are afraid. So where courage comes is the courage to say, maybe I'm not right. Maybe there's another way to see this. Maybe I got to let go of this position. And it's vulnerable. So the courage to be open or vulnerable or surrendered. And yep, it's possible that somebody will step on your heart, they hurt you, judge you, whatever. Or what's possible is that you open up space, love, connection, kindness, generosity with someone else.
Yeah. And I'm reminded of a situation where when I was married the first time, and my former wife and I, I bought our first house. And I'll never forget, we're in the living room and I've got my chest stuck out because I am so proud of buying her this house, whatever.
Right.
And my former wife looked at me and she said, Michael, she said, this is a nice house. She says, but I would have been just as happy living in the apartment with you. Now, she meant that with every fiber of her being. She meant that. But what I heard, what I interpreted,
yeah,
this woman don't appreciate how hard I worked to get this house. And I made her wrong for just loving me, honestly.
Yeah, for sure.
But I was so stuck in being right about it that I argued with her about her not loving me and appreciating how hard I worked.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, that little voice in my head was saying, don't go there. But there was that other part of me that said, stick to the guns, be right, be right.
Yeah.
And what did that create? Disconnection. So the willingness to let go and not be so attached to being right is so transformational.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's so transformational. I mean, every war is based on that idea, right?
Yeah, every fight, every war, every lawsuit, everything.
It's just that attachment to be right. So being willing to say or to acknowledge that you don't have to always be right. And I say, I'd rather be happy than right.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I often say, and by the way, we're all still working on this. This is 33 years later. This is still an opportunity for me. Let me just say, it's not like, oh, I got it. I say you can be right or you can be free.
Yeah.
But if you want freedom, you got to give up being right.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because in this journey of transformation, it's just that. It's an ongoing journey of awareness and being willing to challenge, our deeply held beliefs and ideals about everything. And it's not like we're going to get there wherever there is, but when we learn to just be in the moment, surrender to what's real and authentic, and to maintain connection, then we're halfway home.
Yeah, I think the question for people to ask is this serving my vision for my life? Is this bringing me closer to what I want? Is this bringing me closer to the people I want to be close to?
Yeah.
Questions like that.
Yeah. Now, here's a big one that you talk about in your book. I think Shakespeare said it best when he said, nothing is either good or bad until you think it's so.
Yes, that's brilliant.
And you say the event is neutral, or is it? So talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's one of the chapter titles. So throughout my own transformation and everything I've learned, and I teach and I train and coach, events are actually inherently neutral. Now, by inherently neutral, I mean they have no inherent significant meaning. They are not, however, neutral to us as human beings. Human beings are meaning making machines. It is what has us have such high intelligence. We can make meaning out of things. The difference between a human being and other beings is human beings are the only beings on the planet that have an issue with our own being. This is so great. My dogs have no issue with dog being. A caterpillar has no issue with caterpillar being. But we are always in our mind thinking about it. So because we're highly intelligent, we make meaning, but the events themselves are neutral. And so if you give an example, a traffic accident can, this two cars hit each other, but you'll have several different ways of seeing it and interpretation around the same exact event. So the power of this is the events of your life are neutral, then you make meaning out of them. If that interpretation does not empower you, doesn't support you, then maybe there's another one you could make up, because literally we're making it up. Now, here's where it gets tricky. Because we also are emotional beings, when things happen, we have emotional feelings about it. So, for example, if someone dies, people have grief, people have sadness, people have longing. What's important, I talk a lot about this in the book, is that when an event happens, if you have a sort of disempowering experience around it, hurt, sadness, frustration, etc., let yourself feel the feelings. You got to experience your experience, I call it. Feel the feelings. If you don't feel the feelings, they say stuck. So if you watch a little kid, they're great at this. Like a 1 or 2 year old, they're like sad, they'll cry, and then they're done. And they're happy, they'll laugh, and then they're done. They feel it all. Whatever we experience fully dissipates. If you ever had a really good cry and then, that feels so much better. It's kind of like release. So experience your experience, figure out a way to responsibly have those emotions. And then here's my challenge to people, like the homework assignment. It's find 3 other ways to look at the exact same event from a place of empowerment. So you get furloughed off your job, you feel sad, you feel frustrated, you feel scared. Then write out 3 other ways you could see that same event from a place of empowerment. I can start my business, I can X, I can Y, I can do what I really want to do, whatever that is. But just the practice of that starts to give people power. Because otherwise the events have power over us versus we're in the driver's seat.
Yeah. Now, I was involved with the New Age movement for a while, pretty heavily. Still am to some degree. But they use the term woo-woo stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And I know for someone watching this, it can be difficult to grasp the idea that events are neutral. But I just want to share this. During my divorce, which was possibly the most painful experience of my life, I remember just sitting there thinking, my life is over. I'm a failure. This is awful. This is terrible. Now, the good news for me is at the time I was an atheist. So I didn't have any religious stuff tagged on to it, said I'm a sinner. And thank God I didn't have that to deal with.
Right.
But now, with new eyes, what I can see is that my divorce was literally the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
I mean, without question, it was the best thing that ever happened to me because it challenged me for the first time to stop looking outside of myself for answers.
Yes.
It challenged me to look within. And it was my wake-up call. And it was a very positive experience. Now, did it feel positive when it was happening? Oh, God, no.
Right.
But again, as I look back in retrospect now, I am grateful, so grateful for the lessons I learned as a result of that
Mm,
experience.
yeah.
One lesson that I learned was, number one, make relationships top priority. And now I'm in a marriage that I've been blissfully married for the past 19 years, been together 21 years, and it's so amazing.
It's great.
It wouldn't be that way if not for what I learned from the first divorce.
Yeah, absolutely.
My divorce prepared me to get it right this time,
Mhm.
and I did get it right. So that's an important thing to learn. Events are neutral. It's the meaning we add to them that
Yeah.
gives them power over us. So let's get down here as we start. Wow, time flies when you're
I
having fun.
know, it's so fun. Yeah, I'm like, you're so great.
So it's never too late to have an empowering childhood. Now, I love that idea because no matter where we are, no matter what the situation is, in essence, we can start again,
Yes, yeah.
start anew. So speak to that a little bit.
Well, it's really in the same conversation about interpretation. So your childhood may have been very painful. People, there's, I um with a lot of people who've either been physically abused, sometimes sexually abused. And let me just say right out, no child should ever be hurt, abused, physically, emotionally, sexually, anything. No person should be, by that means. And what is possible through this awakening to, I could choose a different way to experience it. And again, I'm going to say, don't just stuff the feelings. This is one of the things about this transformational work, is there's a lot of space for people to experience whatever it is, their hurt or their pain or their sadness or their anger. That once experienced, I can look back on that and create an empowering interpretation. My parents divorced when I was 28 years old. Very painful for me. It was right before I did these trainings. It probably was my like wake up call to go to the trainings. And I was really sad about it. It was like my whole life felt like it was falling apart. And through the process of this transformation, I got to see, let me just say, would I prefer my parents to have stayed married? I would have, definitely. And out of that, I had the opportunity, to have a much deeper, more connected relationship with my mom, because she didn't ever remarry. And I've gotten to be really her, I've gotten to really have a transformed relationship with her. And then my dad got remarried, and I have a brother and a sister that I never had. I grew up as an only child. So I've reframed that to an empowering experience, even though, I would have preferred, yeah, them stay together, but I wouldn't have learned whatever it is I needed to learn. I wouldn't have gotten to deal with whatever I had to deal with to get myself and have myself become who I am today. So in that way, I can still have, you know, I don't know if it's sadness, but like regret or wish or whatever about the past, but still be fully present and empowered by the current moment. So
Yeah.
that makes
And
sense.
again, as someone who possibly had the worst childhood you could imagine,
Mhm.
um, the one lesson that I did have to learn was I had to be willing to heal that trauma, and
Yep.
another process. But it really is about getting in touch with the feeling.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
the emotion that's trapped that needs to be released and let go of? That's what real transformation work is.
Absolutely.
And I know that for myself, when I started this process before I did LifeSpring, I was a huge Anthony Robbins fan.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
Great.
motivated, rah, rah, rah,
Mhm.
walking on hot coals and all of
Yeah.
that, which was good. But it didn't change my ontological makeup.
Yes. Right.
It didn't get in my cells, as you mentioned. It didn't transform me
Mhm. Mhm.
deeply as the work that I've done with LifeSpring and other organizations that we're talking about. So it's important that we don't deny, minimize, or suppress the events and the emotions that are there, but we can reframe them. And I love that word, reframe our interpretation of those events. And in doing so, we can shift the energy that we're holding on to. And in a lot of cases, let it go.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I want to talk about tribes and the importance of networks, the importance of like-minded individuals in this process of transformation. There was a lot of times when I felt all alone, especially as a Black guy that was doing this work, and I was the only Black guy that was in the training at the time, if I remember correctly. And there was this almost isolation that I felt for a while. But I knew in my heart what I wanted, and I knew it had nothing to do with my ethnicity. I just knew I wanted to be around people that were committed to the same thing that I was committed to, which was transformation. So can you talk to the importance of having that support system, that network of people who take a stand for you, who stand with you in this process?
Absolutely. I think it comes down to our human need for connection. And we connect on things that seem similar. And, you've heard many times that we become basically just like the 5 people we hang out with most often. So the invitation is, number one, the tribe gives people connection. It's common goals, common dreams. You can share. That's why these Facebook groups of certain, trainings or things or challenges or whatever become popular, because people can share their insights, and then people can share their challenges, and somebody will comment and say, okay, try this, try this. So there's a connection there. And then the other piece is when you're with a tribe of people who are up to something, I've always said there's no team without a game. Otherwise you're just a group of people. And by game, what I mean is like a common purpose, a visionary purpose, a higher purpose than ourselves. So when you're with a tribe and the tribe itself has an intention to empower, support, and uplift, that's going to uplift you. If you're with negative people, you're going to get negative. If you're with people that are up to something purposeful, committed, responsible, that's what you're going to, your vibrations, your energy, your thinking is going to rise up to that. And that's why it's so important. That's why actually my business partner and I have a membership of Living Transformation, because it's about people together living transformation, not just in a training room, but also out every day in their life. So
yeah, and that is so important in this process, because as mentioned, it is a process. Transformation is a process. It's just not like, boom, I got it, I'm healed, I'm fixed.
Lifelong. It's lifelong. Yeah.
We're constantly growing and evolving. And I'm a huge fan of Neil Donald Walsh.
Yep. Really great stuff.
Neil Donald Walsh says something that is just so powerful. He says, your purpose is to become the grandest version of the greatest vision you hold for yourself as a human being.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. To become the grandest version of the greatest vision. Now, the question becomes for you who are watching this, what is your vision for yourself and your life?
Mm-hmm.
What is your vision?
Yeah.
Now, Lisa has put together a really powerful tool that can support you in manifesting that vision. And that tool is this amazing book. Yeah. The problem is how you see the problem.
Let me make this simple. Ta-da!
There you go. There it is, right there. The problem is how you see it. It is a step-by-step guide to transformation that, regardless of whether you've done any of this work or not, I can assure you, it's enlightening. It will wake you up. It will change your way of thinking in such a positive way. I can't recommend it highly enough. It has to be on your shelf if you're committed to transformation. So again, you can only get so much done in an hour.
Right. I know we could do this for hours. I know we could. It's so great. And I'm glad to do another one if you want. I'm glad to come.
Absolutely. So, but what I do want to do as we wind down, Lisa, I want to say, first of all, thank you.
You're welcome.
And now I want to give you an opportunity to share whatever's on your heart for the audience who have paid attention and listened to us for the last hour or so. And words of wisdom do you want to leave them with?
Got it. Thank you. I want to leave you with every human being is a unique expression of magic, magnificence. Like there is no one who can substitute the impact you can make. There is no one who can be the mom you are, the dad you are, the husband, the wife, the partner, the friend, the daughter, the son, the leader, the business owner, the future business owner. So I want to invite you to just know the glorious nature that you are. It is your God-given birthright. It is not negotiable. And that you find ways to access that and have people around you that will stand for and support you in that, because I think that will make our world a much better place and a better place for my kids to grow up in. So
nice. So one final question.
Yes.
How does it feel for you to know that you are living your mission and vision of creating a world that works through your trainings?
Oh, thank you. It feels like I'm absolutely being and doing what I'm supposed to be being and doing. That's awesome. And it also feels like there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of I'm not done. It definitely feels like I'm not done.
Yeah. So. Well, as someone who has touched my life, once again, I just want to say thank you for taking the stand that you have. So it means a lot. And I'm so glad that we've stayed connected and we've had this opportunity to reconnect.
Me too.
So, how can people find out where you are and what you're doing and what you're up to?
Yeah, I'm at Lisa Kalmin, Kalmin, on Instagram, Lisa Kalmin, Facebook, and worldworkstrainings.com with the S, worldworkstrainings.com. Any of those, you can find me.
And we'll have links below the video also so that people can find you. So once again, thank you so much. I absolutely love you and adore you, and so glad to be a partner with you in human transformation.
Well, I love you. And it's like a proud mama. Honestly, I feel like I'm a proud mama. Like you've done so much. You've made such a difference. Who you are is such a example for women and men everywhere. And I'm grateful. I'm just grateful, Michael. Thank you.
No accidents in the perfect universe. We were
That's right. That's right. I love you.
I love you too. So this was the actual first interview for I Don't Believe the Hype podcast. And once again, Lisa, you were the absolute perfect person for this. I am going to be bringing on tons and tons of thought leaders from around the globe to educate, motivate, and inspire you to reach your full potential and create an extraordinary life. So if you were moved by this conversation and you want to stay connected, then you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can like us on Facebook, or you can send me an email and say, hey man, I love your show. Just let me know. We appreciate you tuning in. Stay tuned to the next episode in which we're going to help you understand to not believe the hype. The future is brighter than you think. Take care. We'll see you next episode.
Awesome.
HYPE. Don't believe it.
Coach Michael Taylor. Irrepressible optimist with a passion for the impossible. Empowering people to transform their lives from the inside out.